I've been joking about it. Donald Trump has been the deep state has Donald Trump now. And again, of course, I just did an entire diatribe on why I don't really consider it to be the deep state. But it's still funny as hell to say, because Donald Trump's complete 180. I mean, the way Donald Trump has flip flopped, you would think the Illuminati really has something on him and is pulling his strings. I am just clearly being hyperbolic. I don't really believe in the Illuminati right now. But anyway, here are some of the things that Donald Trump has flip-flopped on, and it's fascinating to see it happen in real time. On almost every single significant foreign policy and economic policy, he has flipped on. We saw him go from, with regard to Syria, we saw him go from being a non-interventionist during the campaign to being a full-on interventionist, launching missile strikes against Syria. So that was the first complete 180 that we saw, but it didn't stop there. Today, when he was talking about NATO in a joint press conference, he went from saying that NATO is obsolete to saying that NATO is no longer obsolete, I guess because he says so. Let's listen to that.
The Secretary General and I had a productive discussion about what more NATO can do in the fight against terrorism. I complained about that a long time ago, and they made a change. And now they do fight terrorism. I said it was obsolete. It's no longer obsolete.
All right. So, I mean, just like that, I guess just because he declared it was obsolete, it became obsolete. And now that he declares it's not obsolete, it's just his words are that powerful. It's no longer obsolete, but he's flipped on it. More importantly than just this language is that his entire attitude towards it has shifted, and now considers and now he's going to utilize NATO in a very similar fashion to President Obama and previous administrations. All right. So that was one thing. So the Syria he flip-flopped on, NATO he's flip-flopped on, the Export-Import Bank he's flip-flopped on. He completely reversed his position from opposing it and saying he was going to pull it apart. And he said this, he said, quote, "It turns out that, first of all, lots of small companies are really helped. The vendor companies," that's his whole statement. I'm sorry. It makes no sense. It's not even a complete sentence. But that was his statement. He went on to say, but also, maybe more important, other countries give assistance. When other countries give it, we lose a tremendous amount of business. Instinctively, you would say, isn't that a ridiculous thing? But actually, it is a very good thing. And it actually makes money. It can make a lot of money. So, there's going to be a consistent theme here that I want you to pick up on. Donald Trump's flip-flops come as a result of Donald Trump getting even the most modest education on an issue. Like, I think it's easy for him to have inherited Steve Bannon's anti-institutionalist, white nationalist attitude because Donald Trump doesn't know anything. Donald Trump is a bumbling idiot with not even a third grade understanding of America. Not even a Google-worthy understanding of how institutions work, like NATO and like the Export-Import Bank. And if you don't know the very basics of it, there's no way you can understand the systemic problems with it. And so now Donald Trump is on this journey. The president of the damn United States is on this journey where he is learning the third grade entry level information. And now he thought it was bad because he doesn't know anything about it. And now he finds out just a little bit about it and say, oh, this is actually good. And now he's not even at the point where he hits the peak of that curve and realize it looks good, but there might actually be something systemically wrong with it. And he's so far from coming to the bottom of the other side of the curve where he's actually, kind of disillusioned and jaded like me and be like, is there anything that we could do with this? So he's at the beginning of the curve where he's just now actually learning what the hell NATO actually is and what it does. And so, of course, it's good now because, oh, that's what NATO does. That's what the Export-Import Bank does. That's a great idea. We are sincerely learning. We have a president who's learning on the job in the most uncanny fashion. So those are two of the things that he flip-flopped on, but it gets better. He's flipped in regard to, obviously, Russia. His language is getting a lot more bellicose with regard to Russia, particularly around Assad and Syria, but it's changing dramatically. His opinion on Janet Yellen of the Federal Reserve has changed. At first, he said he was not going to seek, he was going to not get her renew her chairmanship when she's up in 2018. And actually his language was she's toast. That's why it's hard for me to describe it, because he said that she's toast. And now he's saying, well, according to the Wall Street Journal, she's not really toast. So he's flip-flopped there. He's flip-flopped with regard to the debt. According to an interview with CNBC, his budget director, Mick Mulvaney, said there's no way, he was just being hyperbolic on getting rid of the debt in the $20 trillion worth of debt in 4 years. He was clearly just being hyperbolic. I don't remember him speaking in hyperbole. I remember him saying very specifically that this was going to do. And last but not least, he's flipped with regard to one of the biggest issues that promoted him or propelled him into the White House was his staunch opposition to trade deficits with with China. And he considered them currency manipulators. And now after one meeting with President Xi, he's saying, okay, well, maybe they're not really, we're not going to label them currency manipulators because, maybe this, it's the dollar is getting too strong. So maybe we should just not really mess up that, that relationship. We need them. He's floating all these things that are disjointed, don't really connect. And he's also threw in, he needs the Chinese to help with North Korea. He's throwing all these things into the mix, hoping that something would stick and make sense. With regard to China and North Korea, it was fabulous. It was fabulously hilarious that he began to explain to President Xi how China could help with North Korea if they really tried. And according to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump admitted that after 10 minutes of listening to President Xi with regard to their relationship with North Korea, he realized it's not as simple as he thought. In other words, Donald Trump doesn't know anything, speaks as though he knows something, and half of America, or half of voting America, actually believed it. And now we're seeing that as soon as he's exposed to the smallest amount of information, he starts on this curve, this journey, this knowledge curve, where he's like, oh, well, maybe these things aren't so bad. Well, Donald Trump, we don't really have time to wait for you to realize that, yeah, there's some systemic problems that need to be addressed. We don't have time for you to learn on the job. But as a result of him learning on the job, he has flip-flopped on every single issue that was important to his supporters. And here we are on this side of that journey. I don't know if there's anything else to say about that. No, it's not.